Hello, I've kind of made this video before. I'm going to talk about the squat and how to teach somebody to squat from scratch, how to learn to squat from scratch. And like I said, I've done it before. I want to do it again, partly because I have some thoughts that I want to add, and partly because in the format I did it, I couldn't post it into my YouTube, and I have a YouTube channel. I've had it for a while, but it's on my stuff. If you look at it in my Instagram thing, on my Facebook information thing on the top, whatever info, it's there. So you can go ahead and look at all my videos there. Anyhow, how to squat. So first and foremost, the squat. Let's look at the squat. The squat is not just an exercise. The squat is a sitting position. It's a resting position and an exercise. It's both. It's part of standing, which as you stand, you sit before you stand, right? Any standing process involves sitting. Not any, but a lot of them. And it's also a part of jumping, right? It's the landing. Squat is a landing part of jumping. And therefore it has place in the gait pattern and walking and running, because every time you land a step, especially when running, you're landing a jump. So it can definitely be used as an exercise, right? In that sense, or in the standing or jumping sense. So now, because it's part of standing, one thing that I don't understand why more people don't talk about is the fact that if you are not comfortable sitting on the ground, think about this. If you are not comfortable sitting on the ground, whether it's sitting on your heels, whether it's sitting with legs straight, whether it's sitting cross-legged, whether it's sitting in a 90-90 position on either side, if you're not comfortable sitting on the ground, this is totally and completely unbelievably uncomfortable for you, then what are the chances of you being able to sit in a deep squat position? Right? So maybe if you have a squatting problem, you have a sitting problem. And you might want to work on that. I'll make a post on sitting positions and working on sitting another day. Today I'm talking more about squat as an exercise. So when somebody comes to me and tells me I want to learn how to squat, the first two things I want to make sure they understand is that when we squat, we need to move the spine as a unit, as a plank or a bridge, right? As a whole cohesive unit. Because we want to eventually load it probably, right? Put some weight on it. And when we put weight on our spine, it's usually a better idea to keep it together and working as a unit. I've mentioned before, I want to see the head and the hips moving together. Head and hips moving together when you squat, when you deadlift, right? The other thing I want to pay attention to is weight distribution. We have the pinky side of the toe, the big toe side of the toe, of the foot, right? Pinky and big toe side of the foot, right? When we're towards the big toe side of the foot, the arch collapses. When we're towards the pinky side of the foot, the arch gets too big, right? There's a magic spot there where the weight's distributed between both. Now we can't feel that if all the weight's in our heel, right? So therefore there must be some weight in the front and some weight in the back. And that basically, it's called the tripod of the foot, right? Pinky side, big toe side, pinky side, heel. 3 points makes a tripod. And when we have it, the weight evenly distributed between those 3 points, we kind of have like keep the weight in the middle. We keep the weight in the middle. Keep the weight on the arch, arches are made to hold weight, right? And having the weight on the toes gives our brain sensation of whether that knee or that body is going left to right? Whether the rotation of the hip and the knee are in the right place and are being controlled. Now, there's a lot of discussion about and arguments on the internet about foot position when you squat, right? Whether can you put it in, can you put it out, can you put it in, can you put it out, right? So this is my opinion. I'm kind of in the straight foot camp. Okay, I'm in the straight foot camp because when you walk, you run, when you jump, you want to have straight feet, right? It is just more efficient way of landing a jump, but really is really more efficient way of running and walking, right? And again, And there's plenty of research that shows that there's a correlation between not being able to control your foot position during a squat, squat splaying out, like feet splaying out as you squat, or feet, knees caving in, with injuries, right? Strong correlation there, right? Is it definite scientific fact? No, but it's a strong correlation. So if I have to pick a side, I'm gonna go with straight foot side. But here's the thing. Most straight foot side people will tell you that they rather you keep your feet straight than get full depth, right? So if you have to choose between feet straight and full depth, they choose feet straight. Now, most open your feet up, toes out people are sacrificing straight feet, thinking that just because you squat with feet out doesn't mean you're going to run or walk with feet out, right? I'm assuming that's the case. For full depth. So it's really a matter, it's not an argument, it's a matter of what you value more. You value a straight feet that transfer to running and walking and jumping, or you value the full depth that's going to theoretically allow you to work the hip muscles and the knee muscles and the ankle muscles through a larger range of motion. Whichever one you pick, keep the knee and the foot going in the same direction, right? The knee and the foot must agree with where they're going, or the foot and the knee, right? Because if your feet are out and your knees go forward, that's a problem, right? All the way to on the big toe. If your feet are pointing forward and the knees go out too much, that's a problem. You take weight off your big toe, right? All the way to the pinky toe side. So the foot, well, if you toe it out, make sure your knees go out too. If you point it forward, make sure your knees go forward, right? Not in, forward. Now, so that's it for the controversy. And I'm sorry if I bored you already. It's in 7 minutes. Wow. Anyhow, this is going to be a long video. So, the second part of my squat treatise here is teaching you how to actually do it, which is going to be the name of the video. So it's silly that I just started. So here's how it goes. What I want you to do is first teach the person how to move the body as a unit, right? So we start with the bridge. I've told you bridge is really important. It's the first thing I teach most clients, exercise clients that I have, right? Make sure you can do a bridge. And when I do the bridge, I start actually paying attention to the fact that they can keep the weight on that tripod. So I teach the bridge obviously with feet flat then and with feet straight. I make sure they feel the back of their spine. I have a whole video on bridges. Feel the back of their spine on the floor, so they have a sense of where it is in space, and then have them practice extending the hip and flexing the hip while keeping the relationship between your hips and your rib cage the same, right? So once they can do that in this position, which is the easiest position to do it in, I can progress them in two ways, right? One of the most common ways is elevating the shoulders in the bridge. And I love stability balls rather than benches for that. Benches are better for loading a lot of weight in the bridge, but stability balls are better for teaching the movement. Because when you elevate the head, you can move the head and the hips in relationship to each other, like we would in a real squat, right? Or in a real deadlift for that matter. And you can start coordinating the fact that when the hips go down and back, the head goes up and forward. And again, now there's more weight on the feet, and you can start making sure that there's even weight on the pinky, big toe, and heel, right? Now, the reason I like the ball is it gives you feedback. If you do it wrong, the ball flies off. So the bench, you can jam yourself against it. You jam yourself against the ball, the ball's going to fly off. You have to keep weight on your feet. So, now, the other way I like to teach the squat is going from the quad position. We talked about this, about finding the plank from the squat position in the push-up video. And when you look at the push-up video, the quad position, I'm sorry, you see the fact that I'm starting at hip flexion, knee flexion, and actually I'm a plantar flexion here on the feet, which is kind of like ankle extension, but whatever. But it looks like a deep squat, right? And I can get to a position, put my hands in a position here where my spine is nice and neutral or straight, right? And then I can practice going back and forth again, making sure that my head and my hips are moving in relation to each other, so everything in between stays nice and straight. Now you don't have to go that far forward, right? You can, but you could if you have pretty flexible wrists. And again, this is a matter for the plank videos, right, and the push-up videos. You can get your hips pretty far forward and get into full hip extension. But if you can't, doesn't matter. What I really want you to look at is more that full flexion, that flexion back here, and keeping your spine and your hips together. So if as I'm going back, I start rounding, then don't go that far back, right? You could also do it on your toes, right? Even more squatty, right? Because we are in dorsiflexion in this position in the squat. You go back and forth here. And making sure that that relationship between the head and the hips and everything in between stays together. Now, that's how I teach it. Again, floor first, because it's a sitting position. Floor, then up. From the bridge and the quadruped position, we go on to standing. And when I stand, before I teach a squat, I make sure the person can do a hip hinge. And with the hip hinge is this movement we talked about before. It's like the deadlift movement, right? Our hips go back, our head goes forward. There's just enough bend in my knee to allow some weight to stay on my toes. If I go like this, all the way to my heel. Bend my knee a little bit, all the way to my toes. If I go like this, well, it's a squat, right? We're not there yet. So, I like the forward reach, but it's not necessary. Just helps cue that length. So, some people, as I said before, will have more knee bend than me. I have a short torso, longish legs for my 5'7" frame. Therefore, very little knee bend is necessary for me to keep weight on my toes. If I had a longer torso, shorter legs, I would need more knee bend to do so. And some people, when they start doing that, they're going to go automatically driving the knees first and not learn how to load that hip. If that happens, I like to put people, I don't have a good bench, with feet under a bench or a chair, so it blocks their knees as they go forward. Blocks their knees as they go forward, the bench or the chair, and then pushes the hips back, right? So it gives them some feedback. So the knees are kind of close, so the knees can bend a little bit, but not too much. And again, I'm not really hung up on how much the knees bend. I just want the focus to be the hips to go back and forth. Now, once you got that, and I can get most people to that way faster than a deep squat, in my experience. Then we start working on depth of the squat, right? And there is no magical depth. I couldn't care less how deep one of my clients squats, but I just want to kind of allow them, guide them into getting as much depth as possible. I said clients, that's personal training habits. Clients are students, right? I'm a teacher now. So that's how I should think about it. But again, I couldn't care less how deep they go. Some people are going to go deeper, some people are going to go less deep. There's different types of hips, although statistically speaking, most hips are pretty similar. But there are different types of hips. It's a fact, right? And the fact is, we are not in a hurry, right? Somebody has a shallow squat, and the hip anatomy allows a deeper squat, and it takes them 10 years to get there. Great. It's not that they can't get stronger on time there. They can focus on shallower squats and deadlifts and other things, right? Doesn't matter. So again, to work on depth, we've kind of covered this before as well. My two favorite tools are two tools, and again, I'm showing my closet. My wife's gonna kill me. First tool is the limited range of motion squat, right? Where somebody's gonna squat to a limited range of motion. Make sure they can stop there, be stable there, right? And then then come up from there, and then we can progress the range. And I'm looking for that neutral spine, right? If I was doing it myself. You see, I can't get to that one without losing neutral. I can get to it, I can sit down there, but I lose neutral. Which again, if I'm sitting down, resting, pooping, I don't care. But if I have a bar on my back, I do, right? So then you can combine this with the assisted squat, which we will grab something to hold on to. A TRX is great, but a doorknob works too, right? Doorknob works too. A TRX is great. And what it'll do is, it will allow you to kind of contract your abs and your core muscles and your lats. And yes, your lats control your spinal movement. I'm sorry, they just don't move your arm. It allows you to get some stability in the upper body to allow greater hip range of motion, in a nutshell. So, and with this one, for example, I just went to my lowest, right, that I couldn't achieve with neutral spine. But if I push down hard on these straps, I can get to that low position with what feels like a neutral spine. I'm not really watching myself. I'll look at the video later to see if I actually achieved that. But the point is, I could not do that without that extra help, that extra tension that I get from the assistants. So that's one way of working on it, right? Working on that depth. Getting extra assistance, extra points of contact. We come back to that concept. The more points of contact your body has with anything, the greater range of motion it'll give you, because the greater stability it feels. Now, of course, from there, we get into loading, right? Once you got an acceptable range of motion, and you make that choice, what your acceptable range of motion is. I'm not here to preach a particular range of motion. If you're a power lifter, there's a particular range of motion you have to get to, right? Below parallel, if not, or two parallel, thighs to parallel, depending on the federation, politics, whatever. But other than that, who cares, right? I guess CrossFitters also have to have a certain depth, right? I think it's the same as powerlifters. Again, other than that, who cares? Even in Olympic weightlifting, getting really deep is good, because you can lift more weight if you do so, but nobody's measuring how deep you get, right? Saw a dude the other day, power jerking, squat jerking, like a gazillion amount of weight, like some type of world record or one championship, without going into a full squat for his jerk, because he can, right? Nobody's measuring. Anyhow, so when we're talking about weight position, having the weight in front of you will normally, because if it's in front of you, then it's more likely to be on top of your toes, right? Will normally give you a straighter back position. The more in front of you it is, the more the back position is going to be straight, right? The more up and down you're going to be. Having the weight behind you will normally make your body lean forward more. Again, both are fine. Because what matters really is where your total weight, whether you and the load, are on top of your feet, right? If the weight's further behind, then you're going to have to lean forward to get your total load on the center of the foot. If your weight's in front, then you're going to have to lean back to do so. Weight in front usually gives you more depth as well, right? Because the more you lean forward, the more you eat up that space you have between your hips and your thigh bones, your femurs, right? On another note, since I talked about this the first time, watch for this when you start squatting, right? My head moves, my head doesn't move, my head does. I just ate up all the space that I have here, look. Boop, that's where I'm locked up. But look, if I move together, oh, like 6 inches more. Because I didn't eat up all my space by moving my hips without my head. Now, obviously, head without hips, round back. So together. Obviously, these things don't have a script or anything. That's it. I guess that's it. That's it for today. That's my ideas on teaching somebody how to squat today. I'll probably do this again. 20-minute video. I'll probably chunk this up into 2. Maybe not. Okay. Have a nice day.